I'm Sandra White. This is the Strategic Audit Executive Summary for Farm Bureau Insurance of Michigan. The company summary. When we talk about the current situation, the current performance, Farm Bureau Insurance of Michigan is undergoing a current core system replacement that's been happening for about the last 4 years. But they did end 2019 with a net income of $5,620,013. A similar competitor to compare this against would be State Farm Insurance, and they ended 2018 with $8.8 billion in net income. The thing to remember, although it is a similar insurance industry to compare, it is also a fact that State Farm is a multi-state organization and Farm Bureau Insurance of Michigan is a single state operation. The strategic posture of Farm Bureau Insurance is their mission statement, which is protecting the people of Michigan from the risks of everyday life. Their objective is not publicly stated, but they are committed to Michigan and believe in their products that they offer. Their strategies are, the biggest strategy is that Farm Bureau Insurance of Michigan was founded with its parent company of Michigan Farm Bureau, and that was founded in 1949. They're currently celebrating their 100-year service anniversary, and that was founded by farmers that gathered together and decided that they need to unite and build an organization to provide insurance to help protect Michigan farmers. The policies within Farm Bureau Insurance, they offer a whistleblower policy, which means there can be no harm done to people that do report issues, a privacy policy, political contribution policy, and an ethics policy. In 2018, Michigan Farm Bureau was named as one of Ward's 50 property and casualty top performers. When we get into the corporate governance, the board of directors, Farm Bureau doesn't technically have a board of directors, but the parent company, again, Michigan Farm Bureau, does have a board of directors, and that is formed of 17 farmer members. The board members and the links of service, they have about 17 board members that represent each different area in the organization or in the state, and they can range anywhere from they're a brand new board member to they've been on the board for 20 years. Top management is not actually publicized within Farm Bureau's website. A SWOT analysis identifies the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities within an organization. In this SWOT analysis, when we look at the external factors that are impacting the organization for opportunities, they're a one-state operation, which means that they have some really good ways to hone in on the needs of the states, what the people of the state of Michigan need, what coverages they're looking for. That also helps them with product innovation, so they can really dive into some niche markets to identify what other carriers aren't offering in the area and fill those gaps. Some other external factors are the threats within that can come into Farm Bureau Insurance. So one is catastrophic losses. Those are things that people can't control. A catastrophic loss is where something happens and takes out a big area like a tornado or a hurricane or things like that, and it's a catastrophic loss. And when you're an insurance company, you can't really control that any differently. You can't control the weather. You can just control where you insure your losses. Michigan no-fault reform, that's a really big topic right now in today's insurance industry, and that has passed. And so this organization needs to get on board with what they're going to do and how they're going to keep insuring and protecting their customers. Some internal factors that they can control for strengths, again, is a one-state operation, so they can really hone into that. Their mission, again, protecting the people of Michigan from the risks of everyday life, and they really believe strongly in that mission statement. And the culture that they have, as we saw on our last page, it's a Farm Bureau family of companies, so they really try to treat their members and their employees as a family. The internal weaknesses are their current state. So again, like we stated in the beginning, they're going through a core system transformation, and that's takes a toll. It takes a toll on your policyholders and your organization. And then they've recently had a change in leadership from a VP who had long tenure with the organization, has retired, and they have new leadership. Then we look at the external factor analysis, which is the EFAS. And so when you look at this, we're talking about, again, the external factors, so the opportunities and the threats. Again, it's an opportunity because they are a one-state operation, so they can look at what they can offer that other states are not offering, or they can look at what they can offer that other states are offering so that we can make sure that they bring those into our offerings. And product innovation. So these all have weighted scores now. The high weighted score between 0 and 1 or above 1 are the areas that we don't need to really focus on so much. They're doing pretty well in those areas, but then the ones that are lower rated, like our no-fault reform, those are areas that need some more attention from an external perspective. When we get into an internal perspective, again, with our weighted factors, our one-state operation is ranking pretty good at a 1.0. The mission is really strong at a 1.75. The culture is strong again with a 1. And then you get into the weaknesses and an internal factor of the current state of the organization, and that's at a 0.20. And change in leadership is a 0.10, which means these are areas that we really need the organization to focus on. So we take all of that information and then we put it into a strategic factor analysis, which is an SFAS. And a strategic factor analysis summarizes the external factors from the EFAS and the internal factors from the IFAS table and shows what the company should work on based on the ratings. So here in this, we notice that the innovation and the mission are very high factors with 1.25s. And then you look at the current state with a 0.10 and the no fault reform with a 0.15. The TOES is another format. This report turns the items from the SWOT analysis into an action item by talking about how things can be improved. So when we look at the no-fault reform and the current situation and the current state from the SFAS report, we can see here some action items. So we would link these items here. So when you look at internal weaknesses, current state, and that would be a W1. So W1s could do these type of things and some strategies, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. So a recommended strategy for the current state is to implement change management into the organization. So this means the organization needs to develop some way to deal with change in the structure in which it's happening. So every organization is going to go through change, and different change needs different structure and a different change management approach. Also, you can survey employees to start assessing the current state and how to improve it. So the one thing that every organization needs to remember is the people working there are a lot of times the ones that know best. So those are some of the things that we need to make sure don't lose sight of our biggest resource, which are our employees. No fault reform for the recommended strategy is to create a strategic plan for the law passing. So obviously this paper was started prior to the law passing. It has now passed, but had we done this, we could have planned for no fault to pass and understand the impacts in advance. So it doesn't hurt to have a strategy in place in case something happens, and then you have a way to implement it and move forward versus waiting for the what if it passes, or we'll wait and see what happens if it passes. This helps us define it if it does pass or any change does happen, and we can move forward. So the strategic implementation for all of this, the biggest thing is collaboration. So we need a group of people to work together, to talk together, to get some plans in place to get these action items completed. Are there any questions? Thank you for joining me, and have a great night.